Hey, so I recently relocated the power module for my 6U Rackbrute, and I ended up designing this cute little 3D printed part here. So I figured I'd do a little video about it and just kind of show the process, mainly because I found it a little frustrating trying to collect all the information that's needed to execute what is ultimately a pretty simple mod. But there's a number of questions I had, like the molex power cable, what's going on with that, and of course, simple things like the exact size of this DC plug. It's like I've plugged it in 100 times and never wondered, like, is this a 2.1 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter? Why would you wonder that? How this video is going to be structured, which you'll see with the chapter headings. First, we're going to talk about the tools that I use for executing this mod, some of the components and expendables, like this switch or whatnot, that I ended up using along the way, and then a couple challenges that are a little unique to the molex plug is really what I'm talking about for executing it. And then lastly, if you just want to kind of watch a bit of a montage of me actually doing the mod here in the workspace, set to music made by this eurorack, that will probably be something along the lines of, like, I don't know, Defiant Elevator Space Jazz or some nonsense like that. Uh, yeah, you can stick around for that. And lastly, before we dive in, I'm not a YouTube influencer. I'm a bit shy, to be honest. So let me know what you think. If you also have suggestions or comments, even questions, let me know. Let's talk about the tools that I use. First and foremost, you're going to need a drill with a drill bit. I used a step-up bit. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And then, of course, multimeter became pretty critical. Just making sure that I had because the connection to the power module is center positive. Really important that you get that correct, because, bad things could happen in ways that I can only imagine. If you get that reversed. Also, the other thing that the multimeter allowed me to do is, after I soldered my wires in, because I did use a soldering iron, right? Is I was able to check the resistance and just make sure that my solder job wasn't like reading as terrible. Let's see, since you're going to be drilling a hole into metal, I do recommend putting some kind of lubricant on the hole that you're drilling, because there's a lot of metal flakes. In fact, I ended up doing a number of things, like covering the bus board with some paper tape, and then I created some little shop towel kind of diaper parachute collection thing. So as I was drilling through, it was getting not going everywhere inside of the case, but it did eventually go everywhere inside of the case. So you just expect to have to deal with a bunch of metal flakes. So, you could pull your bus board out. I think that that's a worthwhile endeavor. It's like, if you don't have paper tape on hand, I would recommend pulling it. You just definitely don't want your contacts getting bridged. I didn't want to forget mentioning that I used this deburring tool on the holes that I drilled in my case, mainly because I have some weatherproof seals on here that are made of silicone, and the sharp edges of the hole would definitely shred that, as the case wiggles around. So I just hit it with this deburring tool. This one is specifically designed to cut into metal. That's another thing that you can kind of throw at this mod to ensure you're more successful. This here's a step-up bit, which means if I if I go too far or push too hard, I can actually make the hole too big for this switch. The whole reason why I'm drilling a hole instead of cutting a rectangle in the case is because I opted to do a circular switch. This is a latching switch. Those are the keywords you need to look up if you want something like this. So I only needed to put a circle into the case rather than trying to cut a rectangle or use a router or something like that. This is a lot easier. And I chose this switch too because it's low profile, and I'm just scared of the idea of it getting turned off during a live performance or something. So it's a bit harder to accidentally shut that off. Like, you really have to, instead of like a toggle or a rocker type of switch or something. I ended up running, I did need some extra wire as well. Because I didn't want to do the molex cable extension, I had to do just, the DC wire extending out from where my port was located to where the power module is located. This is like a custom design I knocked together in Fusion 360. You can download it, you can 3D print it. If you don't have a 3D printer, let me know. We can figure something out that probably involves a couple bucks. There's 3 different versions of this. I'm using the one that uses velcro. Pretty curious about that. I want to have the flexibility because I also maybe want to relocate where it's mounted in my case. I don't love that it's off to the side and then I have this power run, because my switches are on the left hand side, which is this whole thing with this upper Rackbrute that has its switch on the left hand side, things like that. If it's mounted inside the case, you'll need a method by which to plug power into the case. So you're going to end up drilling 2 holes, one for the switch and one for the female power port. This is a 2.5 millimeter connection, not a 2.1. So, you know, all these DC plugs, they're 5.5 millimeter by 2.5 or 2.1. I first ordered a 2.1. This is a 2.5. That's what you definitely want to go with. The other thing worth mentioning as well is this cable is rated for 5 amps. The power module pulls 3 amps, so I just, you know, looked for something that went a little bit over that. Same with the switch. This is also rated for, I think this is rated for 5. Could be 6. So let's talk about this molex cable. This is a molex mini fit junior dual row with 6 circuits. I have like a modular power supply for a PC that I built, and you know, I saw a 6-pin connector that was molex and was like, that will totally work. It totally won't work if it's not specifically a molex mini fit junior dual row connector. It must be that. So yeah, so I'm gonna put this all together and probably make some music with it. If you'd like to stick around and watch a montage of me modding this case and getting this plug set up and everything, thanks for clicking. Let me know what you think of the video, if you think I should do more nonsense like this. So yeah, so that's it. Thanks for watching.